Hello, and welcome to the Man of God podcast. My name is Casey Wilson. We've got Justin Bonner, Travis Shook, and Danny Antoine. How are you, gents?
Great.
Morning.
Good.
We are talking today about a number of things, really. We wanted to kind of throw a number of hot topics that have been going on in the country into a conversation and then talk around them about conversation. So let me paint this for you. In our country, in our nation right now, you have a lot that's going on with immigration. Right? ICE is a big subject. It's a big topic. Love them or hate them. There's a big division going on in the nation right now over this. You also have a time where we just had a very, you could call it politically charged or directed Super Bowl halftime show. The first time ever a Super Bowl halftime show that was done in another language, like almost the entire halftime show was done in Spanish. And so there's a lot of debate and controversy around that. There's quite a few things that are going on in our country, and it's feeding division and pain and hurt. And all of this really is a fruit of the way that we're choosing to communicate with one another. Mm-hmm. A lot of it. I mean, there's some real pain points in a lot of this stuff, especially if it reaches your personal life in any way, your own home, your own marriage, friends that you know. If it reaches that level, it's going to be you're going to be sensitive to it. But we want to talk about how godly men should engage and talk about these subjects. How should we approach them? Because I think that there is a foolishness that Christians can get sucked into, especially in the political arena, in our desire to stand up for conservative Christian values. Sometimes we actually overlook those and we just jump on the Republican bandwagon and high five anything and everything that Republican figures are doing, right?
Or worse off, we try to stand for these values at the cost of innocent people. It's stupid.
Okay, you'll have to flesh that out.
You know, I'm not going to be making any friends on this one, so let's just rip this Band-Aid off. Everyone stop being so stinking sensitive about stuff. We've lost the concept of conflict resolution. Bottom line is we're in relationship, we're in fellowship. We're not going to see everything eye to eye, but it doesn't mean that we don't love each other. Gotcha. We're not going to agree on everything. It doesn't mean that we hate each other because we don't agree. Learn how to disagree in a way that y'all could just move on and keep life going. What has happened is we've allowed for politicians, crazy people to infiltrate a culture, and instead of us standing our ground, we went with their nonsense. And then we can't understand why there's so much division. There's a lot of division because we refuse to stand. Yeah. That's the bottom line. We all have a way that we think about things. We all have opinions about things. But guess what? My opinion is my opinion. Your opinion is your opinion, right or wrong. It's good for us to hear each other. Why? Because I don't have everything right, and neither do you, right? We don't all have all the answers. Part of what makes this country great is the diversity that we have. But we've taken even that, the word diversity, and turned it into a circus over dumb stuff, and personally, I'm sick and tired of it. It's just really stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of that, families are being wrecked. Friendships are being wrecked.
Yeah.
Relationships are being ruined. All for what? Because we want to follow these crazy people who don't really care not 2 cents about either one of us.
Yeah.
And we're going to call that common sense and say that it's okay. No, it's just really dumb. There's a lot of inflammatory things that are happening, but it doesn't mean that we got to go off into crazy land with people because the subject itself is inflammatory, right? Let's take this ICE thing, for example. Everybody's tripping about it. The whole world is divided, right? ICE is bad, ICE is good. But what are they doing? They're doing their job, people. That's like you being mad at a police officer for arresting somebody because they stole something. Don't want to get arrested?
That's happening too.
Then stop stealing. You know what I mean? It's just pretty common sense, right? And you're looking at this like, we're this kind of country and everybody had to come here. All these countries that people are coming from to leave to come here that we're wanting to just let them in, their countries are not going to let us in that way. We're not thinking like common sense with any of this. We want to just let everyone in. It's not sustainable in any country. That's why every country's got borders. It's not sustainable. You can't just let everybody just jump on the bandwagon. What are you going to do with your own citizens at that point?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that everyone should. I mean, I'm first generation born here in the U.S. I come from a long line of immigrants. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. Not all my family went about it the right way. You see what I'm saying? And I understand that. So like when people talk to me about it, trust me, you're not talking to somebody who doesn't get it. But the bottom line is there's a law for a reason.
Yeah.
When you enter into lawlessness, trust me, you're going to want to beg for that law to come back because people start doing crazy stuff. I lived overseas in Haiti, in a country where lawlessness abound after a while. Trust me, in this country, this is not how you want to live. Believe you me, it can get far, far worse. And I mean, I brought up ICE. That's one of so many inflammatory subjects that we can't even take the time to express ourselves because we're so scared of how everybody's going to react, right? At this point, I don't care anymore. This is how I feel about ICE. You might feel completely different. Okay, cool. Just tell me how you feel about it. And then, guys, move on. Like, don't dwell on it. It shouldn't be eating your lunch all day long. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I get people like, well, you don't understand how this affects me. You ever thought about how it might affect me? It affects everyone. This concept of thinking that it's like a competition of who has the worst life sometimes. I'm like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? It affects everybody. I'm not ever going to negate that it affects everyone in a different way. The problem is how we're handling all this stuff, how we're dealing with each other. We throw each other under the bus for really dumb things. You know what I mean? I go back to 2020, after, COVID and the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Everybody was freaking out over this, right? But nobody's using any common sense in this deal. Right? Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. You're supposed to support this organization because the name on the organization matches the color of my skin. Do you ever think about looking into the organization? Why would I support an organization that doesn't support me? Well, what do you mean? They don't support men. They only support women and children. They want to get rid of the nuclear family. That's completely against everything that I believe in. But I'm going to support them because it has the word black in it.
Sure.
Right? We're not understanding the damage that we're doing and the damage that we're doing to the little ones on top of that because we're making them now, because these kids now are talking about this stuff. And I work with kids, so it's so interesting to hear how they're talking about it. And you know what I hear? All the crazy adults in their lives. I'm not hearing these kids' perspective. I'm hearing them regurgitate all this stuff. But then when I take a moment and guide them, and get them to be able to learn how to think instead of me telling them what to think, conversation's always awesome. And they're divided in the way that they think, but the outcome is always great because no one's leaving there hating each other. So, and if kids can get it, what are we doing? So,
Danny, let me ask you a personal question because I think a lot of this. Okay, let's talk immigration and family and culture for just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
You moved to the U.S. You have now made America your home. This is where your family is, where your grandchildren are, where your life is. This is where you've set roots here.
I was born in America, but at about 4 or 5 years old, my parents got a divorce. So my mom moved us to Haiti. So I spent most of my childhood, I grew up overseas. I came back to the United States in the early 90s, actually in 1990.
Okay.
When I came back to the States. So I got a chance to live in both worlds to understand there's a massive difference. And a cool thing was having so many friends and people from different parts of the world, getting to talk to them about what goes on in their country versus what you experience here. So funny, the loudest people that talk here never been out the country. The loudest people who are talking about all this stuff never even been out the country to understand how other people live.
Yeah.
But they're talking and we're taking their advice.
Okay. So in this country, there's 330 million people that live in America. Roughly 15% of that is immigrants that live in this country. 53 million first-gen immigrants that live in this country. Okay, mm-hmm. That's a huge group. That's a big group, right? I think some of the divide is coming from America being seen as this melting pot, this cultural melting pot. And we've been that way for a long time. There's immigrants from all over the world that have come and enjoyed America, right?
But don't forget, It was less than 4 years ago. We're in this country. We're talking about how bad this country is, right? America's horrible because it's so racist. But my thing to everybody was, if it's that bad, why are these people risking everything
to come here?
Yeah. If this place was that bad? Again, we're not thinking.
No, I mean, second place when it comes to immigration is Germany, and it's 15.8 million. We're at 53. I mean, so vastly larger numbers than any other country in the world. People are coming to America.
Yeah.
Right. And so some of the rift comes when you begin to talk about cultures, individual cultures. And is America this country that's made up of a multitude of cultures, and then therefore we have to honor and respect each culture, individually or equally. For the Muslims that have moved in, I've got to respect their law, their traditions, their values. For the Hindus, for the Mexicans, or are we America and we have our own culture? And as people come in, they bring their life and they bring their flavor and they bring all that. But becoming America is part of moving to this country and doing that well.
Do we get to go to France and turn France into America?
No, you don't.
Do we get to go to Germany and turn Germany into America?
No.
So why would it be okay for people coming here and turn America to another country?
So why is that so divisive for so many, though?
Because people are not thinking. We're just jumping on the bandwagon instead of realizing what's actually going on. People are consistently being asked to do something in this country that no other country in the world is going to allow it because it's not sustainable. It's not just about right or wrong. It's the fact that it's not sustainable. Yeah. No country can survive that.
And I think that's where bringing it back to communication is key, because we're not allowed to have these conversations because we don't know how to communicate in a godly way. Like, we don't know how to have communication in a way that not only values the truth of who God is and communicating God's truth effectively, but also respecting the other person as an image bearer of God.
Yeah, that's huge.
When we are having conversation and disagreement. Because if I say, I don't want America to look like Haiti, but that immediately for a lot of people is, well, that's racist.
Well, let me help you out with that, because I'm from Haiti. I don't want America to look like Haiti.
Yeah, like there you see pictures of some of these places, like some of these countries, and it you can't tell when the earthquake happened, before or after. Like it's a rough place. It's not racist of me of saying I don't want America to look like that, right?
But if you say that, look at it that way.
Yeah, but when you say something like that, it immediately becomes this charged thing where there are trigger words that you can throw out because there's weaponized communication, there's weaponized empathy of, well, you don't know how those people feel. You got to get in their shoes. I don't want to get in their shoes. They're not even wearing shoes. I don't want to get in that. I want to speak the truth in love for the sake of change in a positive way towards glorifying God. And that requires men, especially, to not stoop down to a level of idiocy and to a level of foolish talk to where, right, we're just trying to stir things up and we're just trying to rile people up and we're just trying to cause disagreement. And I mean, like, to bring it back to the guy who just got killed last year, right? Charlie Kirk. Yes, he sometimes said things in such a way that it pissed off the person who was talking. Like, and he said it that way on purpose, right? I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do all the time. But what I mean is the way that what he was doing on a large scale was opening dialogue between people with opposing worldviews. Yeah. And trying to talk about it in a way where you stand and tell me yours, I'll tell you mine, and we'll exchange on where we disagree and where we agree. Listen, and the guy was killed. And that's what I'm saying is communication is key, and going about it the right way is crucial for Christians, especially because when I read something like Matthew 12, and Jesus is saying, you're trying to speak evil, you brood of vipers, you Pharisees, or you're trying to speak what's good. but it's coming out of an evil heart, right? And then he says, the good man brings out of his good treasure what is good, and the evil man brings out of his evil treasure what is evil. I tell you, every careless word that people speak, they shall give an accounting for it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Because I'm not saying that it's salvation by grace and faith plus words. I mean, Jesus is saying that out of your mouth is an overflow of the condition of your heart.
Mhm.
And so the way that we communicate is a telltale sign of what's actually going on the inside and whether or not we even know God. And so this is hugely important. The way that men disagree, the way that men correct, the way that men encourage, the way that they build up, stir up, cheer up the church, and the way that they call out sin and the way they disagree is critical, not only to the witness of the church to the world, but also building up the church internally in love more and more into the image of Christ.
So we got to reteach men and women how to do that again.
Yeah.
You bring up Charlie Kirk. To me, I went back, studied this guy, listened to some of the most inflammatory things that people were complaining about. And really, here's what I got out of that. He's speaking what everybody's already thinking, just nobody had the guts to say it. He's speaking exactly what people were thinking. But nobody had the guts to say it. And because he said it, he got nailed, you know what I mean, for it. You know what I'm saying? To me, again, it doesn't make sense. How we communicate, it does make a world of difference. But the bottom line is, like I said in the beginning of this, in my mind, we're too sensitive. We let stuff rattle us so bad. And it's a lot of the information, it's not even good information that people are so in an uproar about because the media has taken over, but we've allowed for them to. The problem is we complain about the media, but guess who's giving them the kind of power that they have?
Yeah, the platform they have.
Yeah,
I mean,
The listener.
to bring this back to, in my head, simplicity, the simplest, most basic way to live out your life in a God-honoring way is the fear of the Lord. We talked about this last time. If I have this awe and love of God, this respect of God, because of what he did for me. He created me. I sinned, destined to hell, death, eternity away from him. He sent his son to die for me. I didn't deserve it. From that alone, the love and admiration in my entire life given to him is my reasonable service. And if he tells me that I must be persuasive with my words, then I need to take account on what I'm thinking and feeling and bend my will and my emotions to what Christ says to honor my brother, whether they're in agreement with me or not. The aim is love. Paul is telling Timothy, the aim is love. Christ, God made us for love. He redeemed us because of love. Everything he did for God to love the world, love is the aim. So if I'm being sensitive or prideful or triggered or what the frick ever, I've lost sight of God in that. I've lost sight of the fear of the Lord in that. I can't tell you how many times you run a business in town. You know better than me. You're in politics too. Someone always has something to say. I got a letter just a few days ago, someone upset with me. Like, I don't have time to let those things hurt my heart. If someone has something they need to say to me, deal with me, I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to go to God and say, God, whatever is truthful in this, convict me and I will change immediately. And I need to make myself and discipline myself to not be prideful and sensitive, to change, to apologize. Yeah. But if we have, and this is the thing, is this has been a scheme and a plan from Satan from forever to distract us, to keep us busy, to chase after money, girls, gold, glory, everything we just talked about, to be worried about what people think about us, to be prideful. The TikTok, social media has us drowned in everything that they're pumping into us to distract us from our true calling, that we don't know freaking up from down, left or right. We don't know what the aim. Like if you talk to most men, what's the aim? They're like, make money, take care of my family, go to church. Like they have no compass. They have no resolve. They have no true north. They don't know what they're doing. So they're like a wave tossed to and fro. They're chasing after, arguing over everything. People who are friends are on Facebook bad mouthing each other. If you're in any friend group, you're going to hear the guy who isn't there is getting talked about. Like that's just how it is. But for us Christians, it's as simple as, what does God say to do? Our aim is love. Our aim is to tell people how much God loved us and sent his son to die for us. And that is our aim. So if somebody, like, I think it's in Proverbs, it talks about, it's my glory, it's my honor to overlook an offense. It is blessing and good for me to overlook when you hurt me.
Yeah.
Love covers a multitude of sins, because that's the point. Love is the aim. In 2 Timothy 2, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you should read the whole thing. 2 Timothy 2, 14 through 24, he's going over everything of how we should live, how we should talk, how we should handle ourselves with brothers and also with enemies. And I'm going to read right at the end here. And it says, "And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach." What are we able to teach? We're able to teach the standard, the real truth. Able to teach, patiently enduring evil. Not being triggered, not being upset, not going on Facebook, not creating a friend group where we all get together and vent and get mad. Correcting his opponents with gentleness. People who don't like you and don't agree with you. Correcting his opponents with gentleness. God may perhaps grant them repentance, leading to a knowledge of the truth, and they may come to their senses and escape from the snare of the devil after being captured by him to do his will. That's our aim. That's love. That's what we're about. So whether it's ICE, whether it's Oprah, whether it's what the frick ever it is, it's simple. The aim is God. The aim is love. He tells us how to do it. Now, in the moment, you've got to figure out, it hits home. Like maybe my husband, my wife, whatever's being deported, like it hits home more, but like the answers are here.
So let me pose a question, because I think it's important we flesh through this stuff. I'm with you. Love covers a multitude of sins. For God so loved the world, he gave his only son. Love is a Christian virtue, right? It's maybe the greatest of all Christian virtues, right? What's the difference between what you're talking about and when Bad Bunny puts up at the end of his halftime show, the only thing more powerful than hate is love? Is not Bad Bunny also demonstrating the same form of love that you're describing? Or are these two totally different expressions of love?
They're astronomically different expressions.
Okay, help me with that.
God has a standard in the Bible. He created us in his image to do certain things. And all throughout the Bible tells you what real love is, what sacrificial love is. How do you honor a woman? I mean, you hear the lyrics of these songs. That's not honoring a woman. Like honoring a woman, being willing to die for her. He lays out how to love, and he lays out the standard of life here. And it's for us to have the resolve in that, to stand firm in that. If you look at Daniel, we did a whole series on Daniel. Daniel literally had his balls chopped off, removed from his nation, was a slave, and went to Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar was the king. And he had resolved to know what God had for him, what he was called to do, and stood firm in faith and love in Christ, no matter what the cost was. That's for us in every aspect. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm starting a rabbit trail. The basics are here. You're absolutely right. Other people use the same language we do, and it's imperative for us to be rooted in Scripture to know the difference between worldly love mixed in with what we feel like is right and what God's love is and his standards of love and what we should live by.
Can you guys chime into this? Because I'm watching people I love, people I respect. And I mean, take the 70s, the hippie movement, right? This mantra of love, it rallies a lot of people. People can get behind it. There's a sense of unity. There's a sense of sacrifice. There's a sense of oneness. There's a sense of everyone gets this undertone of love is the answer. But if we buy into a distortion of what true love is and we accept it, we're beginning to actually feed on something that's false rather than going to something that's light.
Yeah. When you go to 1 John 4, 7 through 21 is this really, I think, outside of, some passages in the Gospels, I think it's the most charged passage on the love of God in the Bible. 1 John 4, 7 to 21. And then that's where it says, the one who does not love does not know God, for God is love. Right? But what we have to understand is that anything, any concept, any emotion, any truth that is not derived from God, who is the source of everything, the source of all love and all truth, true truth, right? True love, real love, then we end up actually making that emotion, that thing, that concept, the highest thing. And it becomes defined by everybody else below it. So then love is really based on self-definition rather than God's definition of love, who is himself love, right? And so what ends up happening is that words, ideas get co-opted by people outside of God, outside of Christ. And then they end up becoming weaponized, and you end up hearing things like, well, we're saying the same thing. Like love is love,
Yes.
right? Things
Yes.
like love is love. Like that's just stupid. Like, no, love is what God says love is. And there is a common grace upon the world where a man can live his whole life and not know God and actually experience some form of actual love for his spouse. He might be one of those guys who's faithful to his wife, cares about his kids, works hard, doesn't know God. And I'm not saying he's going to find another way to heaven, but what I mean is that he is experiencing some form of the reality that is found in God, but yet he's not really experiencing the fullness of it in a salvific way by repenting and believing and knowing Jesus Christ as Lord. But Proverbs 12:10 says, a righteous man knows the value of the life of his animal. But then it says, but even the compassion of the wicked is cruel. Even the compassion of the wicked is cruel. And there's a way that when we communicate, can we communicate in a way that is godly and say, the love that Bad Bunny is talking about is actually cruelty. The love that pats people on the back as they indulge in sin that will lead them to eternity separated from God, who is love. That is actually cruelty. Now, that doesn't mean holding up signs like Westboro Baptist Church that says God hates fags.
Right.
That's not what I mean. That's not godly love either. What I mean is, how do we actually come alongside people and through our speech and through our actions, show them, right? Not just bark at them, but show them and tell them that this is not love because you're living out of alignment with the one who is love and created love, right?
So for an example, halftime show, right in the middle of it, and I don't know all the undertones of why they did what they did. I don't know all of that. What's put on display, you have this marriage that takes place and from what I heard, it was an actual real marriage ceremony that took place. Traditional, marriage. A man, a woman, they're married. And on the surface, you see that and you go, look, family values. He's promoting marriage. In the same show, you're singing songs about sleeping around with a multitude of women and having an open sexual relationship with women. So you can't put on display the sanctity of marriage, the holiness of marriage between one man and one woman, at the same time sing songs about sleeping around and having just a wild life of sex. That in no way loves that woman and values her in what was put on display. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, that marriage, a heterosexual monogamous marriage outside of Christ is not God honoring, right? Like that principially, it is the marriage that is biblically
It is right.
It's a right kind of marriage.
Yes.
But it doesn't make it a God honoring marriage because the people within the marriage union are not honoring God by being in Christ. Right. And so there's a level again where ideas and concepts derived from God are co-opted by the world and communicated in a way that we as Christians allow to take place because we either communicate incorrectly or we don't communicate at all. Right. And then those things end up festering and we get to a point where we can't just say, I'd rather not make the cake because I don't believe that's a God honoring union.
I got a question for you guys and for the viewers. When love is conditional, is it true love?
Love is conditional. Is it true love? The godliest of love, agape love, is an unconditional love.
Okay. So when love is conditional,
Yeah.
is it real love?
No. You've got motives that you want. There's
Okay.
a reason behind your love. It's an
What's the
exchange.
only place that we find unconditional love?
God, he's the example of
Yeah.
unconditional
In the
agape
Father,
love.
in Jesus Christ, right? Love outside of that is the world's way. The world's concept of love has to do with emotion. You know, I was watching a movie, and in the movie is depicting Satan, and Satan is asked in the movie, well, what about love? His response is biochemically no different than eating large quantities of chocolate. What is he saying? Feels good one moment, but it's going to be gone. All good things come to an end, right? But very dismissive about it. And that's the way we are with love in this world. Super dismissive about it. God is not. He's very intentional about it, and his love is everlasting. It's not conditional. But yet, he wants us to love each other that way. How did he say that they will know you as my disciples?
John 13:35.
By the love you have for one another. That means the love that you display, not the love that you say.
Yeah.
When I ask the kids at the karate school who loves you, they'll say you do. And I always follow up with a question, which is what? How do you know?
Yeah.
Why do I always say that? Because I need them to understand it's not just about me saying I love you. I show you
good.
in everything that I do every day. I'm displaying to you how much I love you, right? But we like to grab a hold of the world's way of just saying I love you, attaching love to everything, right? I love chocolate. I love that house. I love that. And that's what we toss around as love all day long.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder why we're so confused with it. The only love that's unconditional, the purest love is Jesus Christ, because he is love. He's not the definition of it. There's a difference.
Yeah. So
He is love.
in many ways, I think it's fair to say for a person that doesn't know unconditional love, they have experienced brotherly love. They have experienced a form of love, and that's the measuring rod that they have for their life. And so that is what they're able to offer to others,
Mhm.
right? But what we're saying is that the creator of the universe, the God who made you and I, the God who created all mankind with a purpose, who's calling all people back to himself, has an entirely another level of what love truly is.
Now, he's got the only definition of love,
And when we
if I look at it that way.
right, and when we fall short of that, we're beginning to distort and misrepresent God in his image. We actually misrepresent him because we fall short of displaying what he has for us.
How many divorces started out with the world's version of love?
Yeah.
They were in love
Us, yeah.
until what? Until it didn't go my way.
Yep.
They were in love
Yeah.
until what? Until you did something that hurt me. So which means what? I do love you until you mess this up. That's not God, and that's not what he's teaching us. So which means if the world is supposed to experience his love that way, who is the world supposed to experience that love through? Us.
We're supposed to represent it. Yeah.
Us.
But that goes back to the fear of the Lord, like the awe and love of the Lord. If you're in that, and we're speaking to believers right now, your aim is love. Your aim is to, by your witness, by persuasive words, to bring those who are out of the faith into the faith.
Yeah.
So there should be, theoretically, if we have one head, no distortion of love within the fellowship of believers. Because as a man, you should be in your Bible, and you should learn his love, and you should understand his standards, his metrics, how he does it. He literally put it on display in his life. There's a whole Old Testament showing examples of success and failure of it, with the common theme of Christ redeeming it. There's no excuse for us.
So let me ask you guys this. When people within Christ, men and women that go to church, Christians that you and I know, when we begin to divide and debate and get petty, and we do it outside of Christ, what I mean is we do this over, well, you're Republican, I'm Democrat, you're this, I'm that, and we treat each other on those levels. Are we failing
Yes.
as Christians?
Where's the spirit-filled follower of Christ to come into that situation to bring people into the presence of God rather than staying in the argument? I agree that men should be in their Bible, but take it one step further. It's not just being in the Bible, it's being in his presence. There's a spiritual content to this, again, that needs to always be addressed, because if not, how many people I've known men who went through seminary school, read this Bible front to back, Genesis to Revelation, and still miss Jesus in it.
Yeah.
So what does that say? There's an emptiness that we can apply to reading the Word of God. And that's not what God is calling us to do.
Yeah.
His very presence houses the love that we're looking for. So why are we trying to escape that? There are too many people who will have an academic knowledge of this without an intimate knowledge of who he is. That academic knowledge carries no power. It carries nothing whatsoever.
Hearers of the word and not doers of it. Yeah.
It's the intimacy that we have with him that makes that come alive. Men, I'll go to challenge you one step further. Get to a place where you get sick and tired of just reading his word and get to a place where you want to experience everything that you're reading.
But think about I keep going back to the fear of the Lord because I've been reading in Jeremiah with my family and it just like light bulb first time, right? Like I've heard it, but if the fear of the Lord is not a precursor, but a lack of a fear of the Lord is a precursor to falling away from him, right? It's the same thing with your wife. When you start off with your wife, she's beautiful, you're in honeymoon phase, it's great, and then bills happen and kids happen and it gets stressful. And if you're not in awe of her daily, choosing her, dating her, pursuing her, saying she's the most beautiful thing, she is my standard of beauty. If you're not doing that, you start to drift. You start to look at other things. She's prettier, she's got this, I got this, she's happy, she's grumpy. And your focus starts to shift. So to elaborate further on what you were saying, Dad, there has to be a spiritual aspect of that. Another word I would have to describe that is you have to have a relationship because you can miss it. In Jeremiah 2, Jeremiah is rebuking the entire nation of how they've left God. They've exchanged God for other gods, and God's like, there are no other gods. You're exchanging me for wood and sticks. But he says here, those who handle the law, the ones who know the law and who are supposed to teach it, those who handle the law did not know me. So that's what you mean by a spiritual aspect of this, a relationship with him. The shepherds transgressed against me. So guys, the fear of the Lord, the awe, the love of the Lord, it gets you in here because you want to know him. You want to understand him. You start to understand his teachings. You start to go to him as a father with problems and concerns and your wins and successes and good moments. And he convicts you whenever I didn't handle this conversation we had well. I should have done it like this. Or, hey, we might be joking freely. We're believers and we're joking, but this person here is an unbeliever. And what I'm doing is causing them to stumble. I need to be aware of that and change my language for who's in the room. Does that make sense? Like, and when you're in this and you love the Lord, he on the fly, like I've been talking with a believer and we're joking. I had a friend, he came to class and I was like, hey, how was this conference you went to? He's like, good, we beat them stupid Baptists. And he was totally joking. And I laughed just like that. And then there was an unbeliever there. She's like, you Christians are awful, and walked away. And I looked at him and I was like, we're just kidding. Like we should have known the room and left it alone. It was total and jest and fun.
So discretion is huge.
But like that comes from being in this and seeing that response.
So let's go further. Let's carry this conversation down the road because I want to get to helpful points for men. Godly men, how much discourse should they engage in online, and how much should they engage in man-to-man, person-to-person?
So for all of human history, even if you wanted to argue with someone not face to face, it was going to take a few months to send them a letter and get one back, right? Like Erasmus and Luther, they argued by writing whole books. Like The Bondage of the Will by Martin Luther was in a book refuting what Erasmus said about the freedom of the will, and so. This is a new innovation. That's redundant. This is an innovation in human history to where we can just communicate thoughts and opinions publicly with no repercussions over the internet to people who are far away and not sitting in front of us. That's a new thing. So we need to be cautious of that. I'm not saying you just reject texting people or calling them and you only talk face to face. I'm not saying we overcorrect, but that is a new thing that we need to be wary of and discerning of and wise of, and not be the kind of guys that are, just loving to put our opinions out there and loving to engage in online discourse and argue with people. I think there's a way that we can defend the truth. We can speak the truth in love, but we just have to be wise and not be dumb and get co-opted by so many things. But I to what you said earlier about Christians within the church and the way that we argue over things, the tendency to get to a place where Episcopals, the entire Episcopal denomination, Lutherans, so many groups, which it's okay to have denominations in Christianity, to get to where they are now, which is liberal, and I don't just mean politically, I mean theologically. They are outside of the bounds of orthodoxy and who God says gets in. You get there by not knowing how to correct in love, right? Because it's not just don't ever disagree. Like that's not what unity is, right? That's a false unity around actual lies, right? What fellowship hath light with darkness, Paul says. And in the Proverbs, it says, I mentioned it on the last episode, it's the reward for humility, the fear of the Lord. So the fear of the Lord, a component of it is humility. In Proverbs, it also says the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. And so we have to balance these things and say, if I really do fear God, then I'm going to despise what is evil. Now, that doesn't mean I then hate people and the way that I communicate with them is hatred. I hate the evil that destroys, which leads me to telling the guy in the church who's 1 Corinthians sleeping with his stepmom, you have to go if you don't repent. The false unity says, well, that's divisive. They know us by our love. Well, no.
Unity is not uniformity.
Yes, it's not the military, right? At the military, you all get the same haircut, you wear the same boots, you do your bed the same way. Like, but it says, by this the world will know that you're my disciples, not by the love that you have for the unbelieving world. God did so love the world, but by the love you have for one another. He's talking to Christians. By the love you have for one another is what he says. Mm-hmm. So the way that we demonstrate love to other Christians is by communicating. Paul says it so well, by speaking the truth in love. In Ephesians chapter 4, that whole section is communicate with the brothers and sisters in Christ in a way that causes them to want to love God more, which will build up the church, which then, John 17, is a witness to the world of the truth of who God is. But if we don't know how to communicate with each other in a way that is, the aim is producing love, then we're actually destroying the witness to the world.
In communication earlier today, you brought up time periods, okay? But the answer to it is in time.
Sure.
In time before, men had an opportunity to sit down for a second, process through your answer before you send an answer.
Yeah.
Today, everything's so instant, so everybody's just so knee-jerk and very immature in the way that we're going about answering each other.
Sure.
Back then, men could take time. We can still do it today, we just choose not to. If we took the same kind of time before we responded, I bet you all the responses would be different. But we don't. But because of the internet and technology, everything's so instant. So as soon as you see something, it's like everybody's like, oh, yeah? Well,
Right.
Right? Instead, what? Take a moment. Process through it. Think for a second before you speak. Think before you go give a crazy response. Back then, men took that time. That's why they can write an entire book. Yeah. But there was a lot of content there. The content today is mostly knee-jerk. It's not depth. It's not any of that. It's just a quick response because I have it's a quick emotional response to something that I didn't like.
So knowing that as a Christian man, I should try and choose to be far more patient with one another than probably I'm prone to be.
Yeah. Take your time in responding.
But even if I read something that somebody says or I see something that somebody says, I mean, it causes me to be immediately judgmental of a lot of other things, right? I place upon them a lot of things because that's just how we are. That's our human nature to be able to do that kind of thing. Especially with my Christian brothers, I should be more patient and be far more inclined to engage with them man to man, human to human, in a loving conversation rather than just, throw cannonballs over the hill from a distance.
Getting into politics, becoming a county commissioner, that's one of the number one things I've learned. Be slow to speak.
Yeah, because you've had to.
If you think about it, go back and look at my social media and count how many times since I've been in office that you've seen me respond to what they put on social media about me. I don't.
So I want to interrupt real quick. Guys, we tell you a verse, not just to be like, look, we know a verse, we quote it, but to take a verse and apply it. So here, Proverbs 10, verse 19, it says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. He's doing that right now with the Facebook post, with not responding to everything, to not knee-jerk and feel the need for the world to know Travis's opinion on something.
Well, and here's the next part. There's the not responding, but there's also the preference. If I'm going to respond, I'd rather do this.
Yeah.
I'd rather you look at me in my eyes so you can see the sincerity in me, so when we speak, we can get somewhere. Yeah. Versus just reading words that's going to just cause you to just go from like here to here now, over nothing. Take the time, man.
There's just to speak blue collar, a lot of guys, I mean, maybe you're listening and you're like, I don't really care, but Bad Bunny, I didn't listen to him before and I'm not going to listen to him now. I don't live in Minneapolis, so I'm not
wouldn't
an
listen to
illegal
a guy
immigrant.
whose name is Bunny anyway.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
That's fair.
there's, just to be practical, blue collar for guys, there is a lot. And if you're not in the Word and you're not seeking to actually live out the truths that you see presented to you in the Word, this isn't going to really help you. You do need to know what God has said so that you might know how you live by the Spirit in accordance with what God has said. There is much in the New Testament that we as men blow past at Mach speed because, number one, it's difficult to do. Number two, we don't think it's possible because we know us really well. And you read something like James 1:19, everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. If you write that verse on the inside of your eyelids so that you see it even when you're asleep, if you actually tried to live in accordance with a verse like that, that's one. I mean, there's 1,189 chapters in the Bible. I don't even know how many verses. That's one that would revolutionize the way you communicate with your coworkers, with your boss that's a jerk, with your employees who don't like you because you're the jerk boss, with your wife, with your kids, with the people at church.
Will you read it
with
again?
the person at the store. Know this, my beloved brothers, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Quick to hear, slow to speak, quick to listen, quick to not obey what's said, quick to hear what's being said, slow to respond to what was said, and then slow to get angry if you disagree with what was said.
Whenever I was in the Coast Guard, we had to study this rules of the road navigation stuff, and it was like lawyer written text. That way, if you were sued, you knew what you were supposed to do. And we did a deep dive on may, must, shall. Those things are drastically different. So must there is non-negotiable. It is, you absolutely have to. This is bare minimum. There's no other option.
It doesn't say should.
Or you may do this, or you could, you must do these things.
Yeah, we read these things though. I mean, you can read Ephesians where it talks about the way that we speak. The Ephesians chapter 4, Ephesians 4:29. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for building up what is needed so that it will give grace to those who hear. Like, we read those things and we just breeze by them and we're like, okay, I'll get to that when I get to that. And God, and Paul, the Holy Spirit through Paul is saying, this is how you need to conduct yourself, not only because it's actually sin to not do it, but because this is going to produce the life that you actually desire, and keep scratching your head and wondering why you don't have it. When you, as a man, every moment of your day is going to be communicating with people. That's the whole point of what we're talking about today. Every moment of your day is going to be communicating with people. How are you doing that? Are you doing that in a way that when you come home and your wife is upset because the kids have been driving her nuts all day? Are you quick to hear, or are you slow to hear and quick to speak? Do you go, well, they seem fine to me? Wrong. You go, well, stop getting all upset. They're just kids. Wrong. And it's what you talked about before, Danny, you will never hear the heart behind the words if you are slow to hear and quick to speak. I mean, that's what is the Shema? Shema means listen. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Yeah,
You shall love the Lord your God.
It actually means stand up, take attention,
Yeah.
look me in the eye,
And then obey it.
hear my words.
Hear and listen and obey. Like that's what God is saying. Like, hear me and listen to what I'm saying. Like, gather it. And men, if you know the word, even if you just know one verse, if you're like, yeah, I'm a Christian and I know one verse, it's James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. You're going to do pretty well. You need to know more, right? You need to know more. But if you start to say, okay, God, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. This isn't how I think. This isn't how I'm like wired. I'm just wired to speak quickly. Well, shut up. Get
Show
rewired.
discretion.
That's what
Before
Romans
Jesus, we're
12:1
all
says.
wired one way, but after Christ, when
Yes.
Christ comes into the picture, we inherit his personality. That's why there's really
that's
no
good.
such thing as even an introverted Christian. Like, if Christ is in us, we're a new creation. We're no longer whatever we were raised like, whatever we were used to.
Yeah.
You know, like none of that matters anymore when Christ enters a picture.
Galatians
And
2:20.
we don't bring that forth enough to get people to understand like the power that they carry, the power for change, the ability to walk this life out in a way that you've never experienced before or probably even seen happen in front of you, for that matter. Who Christ is a dominant thing. And we often don't want to share that at times because people get so afraid, because people might say, well, you think that Christianity is the only way, and it's like the only exclude. Well, Christianity is not the only religion that claims exclusivity. And we like to gloss over that all the time. And it's okay for all other religions to claim exclusivity, except for Christianity. It's crazy. No, Jesus Christ is the way. He is the way. And we can show that on many different levels. And literally, if you look at the way that Jesus communicated, if the world communicated with each other that way, we'd have a whole different world on our hands.
All right. So, gentlemen, it is fair to say that you can be in favor of immigration that's done legally. You can love immigrants. You can love other cultures, and you can still be against illegal immigration. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
That's fair, right?
Absolutely.
You can enjoy and find value in Latin culture, and also stand up and say Bad Bunny's a terrible representation of your people and of godly virtues. Is that fair? There's better, you have better people than that you can put on display in order to value and show family values and godly virtues.
Yeah.
You have way more that you could put on display for the world to see. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Bad Bunny. I mean, this is where we're at in this world now. A guy named Bad Bunny is in the Super Bowl halftime show, and that's who we get the focus on. Bad Bunny.
I think the part that, so we ended up watching the Turning Point Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what I
halftime
did.
So I think, and I don't want to say visually one was better than the other or that. The storyline that I enjoyed the most, Ba with the Ba, his first hit that he ever wrote, was filled with terrible lyrics. I mean, Kid Rock lived an ungodly, terrible life for a very long time. And he led and encouraged a sinful lifestyle. He really did, right? I mean, I can say that.
Kid Rock was off the chain.
And I can also say that the verse that he wrote for Till You Can't was fire. And it was so good. And I'm so encouraged to see the the redemption story that's taking place in his life, and I hope it continues.
To see a man change, you got to commend that. You know, people like to criticize it more than anything. Well, as Christians, what kind of culture do you think we're going to have in heaven? We're going to be celebrating each other in heaven. Don't we think we should be doing that same thing here?
Redemption.
When you see a man who's come out of so much craziness to change their lives, to be walking in a completely different path, let alone a path that's no longer destructive, why are we going to keep beating that dude down?
Yeah.
And we do it often. It's not just a Kid Rock. It's so many people that we're around. We won't even give them a shot because we can't get out of the fact of what they did. Well, guess what? You did a lot of crazy stuff too.
Yeah.
We were all forgiven.
Well, brothers,
all forgiven.
You know, you're tuned in because your pursuit is to become a man of God. And that means that you belong to an eternal kingdom, a kingdom that's far greater and far higher than any national kingdom that's here on earth. It really is. We belong to a world of a kingdom of peace and love and godliness and righteousness. And that's a kingdom that should cause us to be patient and kind and long-suffering and create the kind of communication that is exemplary for others to see. And so become that. Be that example. Become a man of God for those around you.